Okay, so I just went, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Accessibility SIG webinar on banking issues and how to make banking more accessible for people with low vision. We are so glad to see all of you here. We had a great response to this webinar. And I know people are streaming in now, but we have a packed agenda, so we couldn't wait anymore. So we're so glad that everyone is here to join us. And we are just looking forward to this webinar. So my name is Judith Hellerstein. I am the secretary of the Accessibility SIG organization, and we are glad to have you here with us. And this is the this series was made possible through a grant that we had gotten from the Internet Society for looking at how are we going during the pandemic, how do we work and making things more accessible for people with disabilities. There's a lot of issues that are problematic for people with disabilities. When we went straight to a virtual world, and we're looking at what are the obstacles, what are the barriers along the way, and featuring out different series. So we had this is probably going to be the concluding webinar for this series. We had series on accessible documents. We had a series on opening series on looking at all the issues of cognitive, hearing. One of the early ones discussed about the problems with masks for people with hearing disabilities. We did a focus on people with hearing disabilities, and we did another section with what's happening in partnership with ISOC Armenia, which was a fascinating thing about working on apps that they're developing and what they've been doing. And now we're doing the series on banking. So I'm thanking you for coming to the series, and stay tuned for more series of this. We're gonna be doing some new series starting at other times. If people are interested in other sessions, we have join our WhatsApp group, and we are working on planning our April event, which is gonna be at the end of April. So stay tuned and let us know if you have any ideas for any panels or any other discussions. We are very much looking forward to your ideas and your suggestions of topics, because we can only do this with your suggestions. So right now I'll turn it over to our moderator, who I planned this whole series, Mohammed Shabbir, who's also our president. Shabbir, thanks so much for organizing this amazing panel. Shabbir, over to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much, Judith Hellerstein, for the introduction and for starting this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, as Judith told you, I am Mohammed Shabbir Awan welcome from Pakistan, and good evening. Today's webinar is very special because it addresses the issue of persons with specifically blindness or low vision. And it addresses, though it talks just about the banking issues, but there may be certain other overlapping issues that come in the ambit of person with disabilities and digital accessibility. So we'll be discussing. One of the most interesting thing about this webinar is that we have a very impressive line of speakers before us. 7 speakers from 7 different countries, and all of them, or the most of them, they themselves have experience of lived vision loss. So they all, most of them, 6 of them rather, to be exact, they have vision loss, and they deal with the banking system in their own respective countries. Our 7th speaker, Abdul Qadir Suleiman, though he himself is not visually impaired, but he has an impressive experience of like 20 to 25 years working with people with blindness and the organizations of the blindness. Abdul Qadir is from Jordan. And he has also been working with the Asian Blind Union, World Blind Union, and United Nations. So we have very experienced pool of speakers, and also the participants, those would be joining and questioning the speakers. That would also add to the value of this webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, as Judith told you, we have a full agenda. Therefore, without any further ado, I would first invite Majid Khan, a dear friend. Thank you very much, Majid, for agreeing to be the speaker at this very impressive webinar. And thank you very much for joining us today. I would like you to share your experience with us.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you for having me in this wonderful webinar. And I would like to welcome everyone. My name is Majid Khan, and originally I'm from Pakistan. And I've been here in United States almost 16 years. And I am computer instructor, basically. I've been teaching almost 12 years. And about banking, guys, I think this is very important webinar, and I would like to congratulate with all you. You are doing excellent, and especially I would say this is great lack of awareness about blind people and what can the blind people can do in banking, especially screen reader softwares and these apps. Even if I am here in United States, whenever I go to bank, and especially I would say the lower staff members, they are absolutely unaware. Even here in United States, I have to tell them what can I do on my the cell phone or my screen reader like JAWS, which might be you all aware of that the screen reader software. So once they got to know about these things, so they are very, very much the helpful for everyone, and especially for me. What I am having here, a lot of good things, which very makes me the all banking, like my transactions, my checking account. Like for instance, I will give you a few examples. Here in United States, we are all having Braille ATM, and very accessible and very easy to use. My lot of friends, although I never got experience about the Braille, but I have seen everywhere. But my friends, they are doing this thing, and they said, it's very accessible, very easy if you want to withdraw your money. And talking machines, like when you take your headphones or earbuds, and you can use through that, it's very accessible. And once you are using, and they make sure that it is very safe for you, because once you turn on that option, talking option, you can turn off the screen as well. The screen would be completely black, like dark black screen, so nobody can access, the other people can see your screen. And like if you prefer, you want to read your Braille bank statement, like monthly when you receive the statement, if you request them, so I want to have my Braille bank like monthly statement, so they can send you a statement in Braille, so you can read that one. If you are partially blind, like if you have some vision, you can read, and they can send you the large print statement, bank statement. If you need a device to read your statement, so they provide you that device as well. Another thing that might be you guys don't know about that, it's called Access Checkbook. Access Checkbook is very important. It's checkbook, and it's all lines are raised lines where you can feel it. You can touch the lines and you can write your checkbooks, your check. Um, uh, and also, very important another thing, especially this problem I, was facing when I was in Pakistan. They were always asking me how you gonna sign signature. So this is, very important. So here it gives you the, the options. How would you like to sign? First, where we go, like vocational training centers and schools, they teach you how to sign like sighted signature. Our lot of blind folks in Pakistan, which I know very well, they are very very much educated, like they got very good master degree or PhD degree, but unfortunately they are, the by birth blind. And by birth blind, they guys don't know how to sign like sighted signatures. It is very important to teach them how to sign at least their names. Once they will go to the bank and they can show them that, I can sign, because the banking sector, the big problem which they create, they said, how are you going to sign it? And one more thing which I would like to tell, that they said your signature will not match every time. And it is very hard even for sighted people to, the same signature all the time. So therefore, we have to convince them we can sign. And plus you can take your signature guide with you. Stamp also you can use it, signature stamp. But the signature stamp, it's a little risky. Here, the people said it's a little risky. People can take your, your stamp, and they can, fraud you or fraudulent signature. They can do that. So the thing I think, guys need to teach bankers, especially I would say lower staff. It might be the managers and officers are good, and they, can listen you, and they, you know provide you the good benefits and facilities. But the lower staff, we need to teach them. We need to tell them, whenever, the visual impaired people come to the bank, please guide them and tell them, what to do. So these things, any question so far, people, guys?
Majid, we will take questions at the end. So
Okay.
if you are finished with your intervention, I'll invite the next speaker.
Okay, sure. Sure.
Thank you so much, Majid.
Mhm.
Of course, there are certain comments in the chat. Those would be read for our speakers if there are any questions in the end, and speakers would have the chance themselves to check the chat and then comment in the intervention interactive session.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Majid. Thank you very much for your intervention. These are, of course, not the complete things that banking sector has for people with visual impairment in the United States of America. But you certainly have highlighted certain facilities that are provided to people with vision impairment in USA. And when it comes to accessibility, USA is considered to be the role model, so-called. I would not say the role model, but so-called role model, because they tend to have a lot of these facilities and accessibility guidelines, and they follow them as well. Now let's come to the other part of the world, my part of the world, and I would go to, before I come to Pakistan, I would go to Bangladesh and ask Vashkar Bhattacharjee to share his experiences. What is the situation actually in Bangladesh? How people with blindness and visual impairment use banking and how banking sector treats them. So Vashkar, floor is yours. Thank you very much. I forgot actually to thank Majid to keep his intervention in time. So Vashkar, over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shabbir, President ISOC, Internet Accessibility SIG. And I'm really very happy to inform you that today we are celebrating 50 years of independence. Bangladesh is celebrating its 50 years of Independence Day. And within these 50 years, we really progress, and also we still have lots of challenges in accessing banking service, different digital inclusion, also a big challenge for us. Even though last 1 decade, we are transforming into a digital Bangladesh, and we are now trying to make it inclusive and barrier-free for all. Ladies and gentlemen, we have almost 3 million people are visually impaired in Bangladesh. Even a few years ago also, they were not able to open the bank account because banks were reluctant to open the bank account of persons with visual disability. Our central bank, Bangladesh Bank, they have given a circular and order, which is like anyone can open bank account only by, I can say, 12 cents, almost 10 BDT. That means if someone would like to open bank account, they can open it by only 12 cents, almost 10 BDT. So this is one of the great move by the Bangladesh government and State Bank of Bangladesh, like Bangladesh Bank. And also they have given some circular, like people with disability can get loan service, etc. But in terms of accessibility, there is not much happen. Still, we are not able to use any banking service by our own, including internet banking. Personally, I am using different banking service, but unfortunately, they are not accessible at all. There is no accessibility in the ATM, no accessibility for credit card, etc. Even some maximum bank are not really providing us ATM card or credit card. Check is of course not accessible at all, and internet-based banking are not accessible. Websites are not accessible. So even though there is a law, it's called Persons with Disabilities Rights and Protection Act 2013, and there is a separate section for accessibility, digital inclusion, e-service, etc. And if any service provider not comply with the law, any persons with disabilities can go to court for getting compensation. But unfortunately, none of us get that types of remedy from the court. But still we are trying. We are doing some advocacy, lobbying. As you know, I am one who is working with the Bangladesh government as a national consultant, accessibility with A2I, that is Aspire to Innovate program of ICT division. And also I also work with the Prime Minister Office of Bangladesh. So still we are hopeful that one day all the banking service will become accessible and barrier free for all. You know, another issues is that literacy among the blind people are very low, and whenever we go for any advocacy, as customer size is very poor, they don't want to invest to make it accessible and inclusive for all. We even never imagine that any bank will provide us any bank statement in Braille, which is just a dream. But I believe it will happen one day, because we are now working hard to convince the banking sector of Bangladesh to make it inclusive and accessible. Even though they are investing lots of money by the name of CSR, they're donating some money to some disability related organizations, but they are not investing for making their service accessible and inclusive. Nowadays in Bangladesh, mobile banking become a very popular. We all are using mobile banking. So this is also inaccessible. I couldn't find any apps in mobile banking sector which are accessible for people with disabilities. This is a big challenge for us. And another issues like many mobile phone provider like iPhone, they don't have any text to speech in Bengali. So we are highly dependent on the Android platform. So this is another challenge. And we are now promoting open source technologies such as NVDA and also Google text to speech, which are really popular among the persons with visual disability. However, Bangladesh government are planning to develop a national accessibility guideline, national web accessibility guideline. They are now making national helpline 333 accessible for all types of people with disabilities. They are making MyGov, www.mygov.gov.bd accessible, and where almost 4,000 services are accommodated. So any visual impaired people may use this service when it will become accessible. They are trying to make e-learning platform, one of the largest e-learning platform they have developed for the people with disabilities, and visual impaired people also can use that. And another issue is like Bangladesh already ratified the UN Convention of Rights of Persons with Disabilities. As you know, there is Article 9 and Article 21, which is guarantee the accessibility for people with disabilities in information and service. And also, I already told you there is a law followed by the UNCRPD, that is Persons with Disability Rights and Protection Act 2013, and they have the accessibility section. And also, Bangladesh want to achieve SDG by 2030, and UN Disability Inclusion Strategy also a very important tools for us. However, we believe, despite of all challenges, we'll able to overcome all the challenges, and we'll enjoy equal rights with others for accessing banking service. Thank you, Internet Society, for giving me the opportunity to speak here. Thank you, my friend, Mr. Shabbir from Pakistan, inviting me here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vashkar, for your this very excellent intervention. So participants, those who have never had interaction with people with vision impairment and the issues that they face with regards to banking sectors, they would now be realizing different kind of issues in different parts of the world. So now let's go to the Middle East, to the Arab world, and see how people with vision impairment and banking sectors are dealing with one another there. We have amongst us Abdul Qadir Suleiman, a good friend who has been working on accessibility and disability for people with disabilities in general and people with vision impairment in particular, though he himself does not suffer. But I count him as a person who is ingrained in people with vision impairment. So Abdul Qadir, the floor is yours, and you have 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, my friend. Let me start by talking that Jordan and Arab countries are not far away from other countries and from our regions. Actually, I will divide my speech in 2 sections. The first section is that how blind people suffered from banking system before the COVID. And the second section, what procedures and what interaction from the government has been done during the COVID-19. So I think before the 5 or 6 years, blind persons in Arab countries, in most Arab countries, especially in Jordan, was incompetent because if you want, let me explain it, if you want to go to the bank, I mean, before 7 years, if you want to go to the bank as a blind person, you have to bring with you 2 witnesses people, and every thing you do inside the bank, withdraw or pay, you need signature from 2 persons. And that was actually something hard from the blind persons. It's not go with the independency of those people. So we have a campaign, accessibility campaigns, banking campaigns for persons with disabilities, especially for the blind people, that we have for the government to cancel this condition for the bank. So blind people, after that campaign, start doing banking and financial, let me say, contribution in the bank independently. How was that going? So we have sit together with the DBOs and NGOs in Jordan, and we have discussed what blind people need from the bank. We have found that he needs is exactly the same as people with no impairment needs. He want to withdraw his money. He want to pay. He want to, let me see, doing the business, etc. So we have started to contribute to discuss with the government how to amend, first of all, the policy with the financial and the banking and the central bank, and how we can start from there. So fortunately, we have succeeded to make people open bank account independently. So blind people now in Jordan can go to the bank, open bank account. So this is the first step. The second step was the problem of ATM card or the Visa card. So blind people were not allowed to get this card unless they are provided some conditions, and they can access to several services. So what we have done is that we also have amended the policy and registration in Jordan to allow people with vision impairment to go into internet banking and phone banking. We have something called phone banking. You can do everything with your account from the phone. So just you need your bank number, bank account number, and you have a special passcode for the phone call. And you can doing whatever you need, except of course to withdraw the money. So still we have a problem, how to withdraw the money without these difficult conditions. So the government, I think COVID-19 was a good chance to the government and to the people to improve the banking system in general. So what we have done from 2 years, that we have something called e-wallet. E-wallet depends on your phone number. So now every person with disability or without disability in Jordan has their own e-wallet. You can go to your telecommunication company, tell them that I want to open an e-wallet, and this e-wallet allows you to receive and send money from your phone application, just only an application. So we have discussed this issue with the banking system, central bank actually, and the telecommunication companies, and they have designed a special application for this issue. So now I think every person can receive money, pay his invoices and his bills, and withdraw money without a business card or without a Visa card, without an ATM card. Just what you need to go to any ATM, just from your application, just say that choose that I want to withdraw, for example, $100. So the banking system immediately will send you a passcode. So just enter the passcode in the ATM and you will get your money. So I think this is very important, and it becomes easy for persons with disabilities. Also through the application, you can pay your bills, pay your fees, government fees. You can transfer money from the e-wallet. So I think most banks provide online also bank account with no necessary to visit any branch or ATMs. So you can do everything from here. I think still we have a minor problem. It's not that big problem. I think because most of problems is being done by the government and by the company and DBOs and NGOs in Jordan. Still we have two problems. The first problem is that we can't get a Braille statement from the bank. And although we have our law, disability laws in Jordan, which is established and launched in 2017, but as all of us aware that Braille costs some money for people, so it was difficult to make any statement in Braille. What we have done is that you can order and request your statement, an online statement. It will be sent to your phone number, or you can get your statement from the bank application. And of course, it will be accessible for voiceovers. The last one is that the internet connection here in Jordan, unfortunately, it's not that so good. So sometimes you face some problems with the banking connection or just for your transactions. So I think that's all. As I said, Jordan is not far away from the other countries. I think we are facing the same problems, but fortunately, during COVID-19, we have succeeded to maintain these problems and to succeed in doing something good for blind persons. Thank you very much. That's all for now.
Thank you very much, Abdul Qadir, for this wonderful intervention. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the person I'm going to invite, I really am grateful to him that despite his difficulties, he is from Uganda, a good friend, Dr. Abdul Busuulwa, if I'm pronouncing your name right. Please correct me. Ladies and gentlemen, this gentleman lost his father just past week, and we condole him and we pray that he and his family recover from this tragedy. Only for that reason, I would be grateful to him. But despite his internet connectivity issues, he has been able to join us. So with great appreciation and thanks, Abdul, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mohammed, and thank you for the moderation, and thank you for the kind words. I can also add that today is my birthday, so that is again another good thing to add. And I want to start from where somebody from Bangladesh ended. Issues of signing, those are challenges here in Uganda. We used to have problems signing so that we open bank accounts, but with time, as blind people became many, those who went to school and those who had jobs, it became easy to convince the banking sector that we can use thumbprints to sign for opening up bank accounts and also to sign for money and any other transaction. But it is still a challenge in many banks here. And secondly, you will find that in Uganda, we have just made a policy. It is called an ICT policy for persons with abilities. It is still in draft form. So many of the accessibility features that blind people would benefit from are not yet there. Like one time I went to the bank for a quick study to find out whether they know about an accessible ATM. Yeah, and they told me, you know, these ATMs can be made to speak, but we don't know how to put that speech device on the network. So right now, the ATMs cannot speak. So our experience here is that you have to work with an assistant or a guide in order to use your ATM card. But we are not restricted on the acquisition of ATM cards and Visa cards. Thirdly, there's also an improvement around internet banking and mobile banking. For mobile banking, many banks have developed apps that you can use safely with your phone. The only problem is that they are not so accessible, so you will need to work with a trusted assistant to help you through the navigations, especially if you want to do a transaction. But many banks at least have that. And for internet banking, we have that electronic identifier. But again, somebody has to read for you the code that displays on the screen of the identifier so that you can feed it in to the account, especially if you want to open to log on. Sometimes you need to use that code. So everything here so far, we are not so independent, I think what you can do independently is if you have like an iPhone or another screen reader on your phone, you can easily read your bank statement. That is very possible. 2, you can open an account and you ask for the digital version of it. That is also not restricted. But if you are doing any transaction, you will have to use an assistant in order to transact properly, because if actually even entering the digital platform for the first time, they use that feature, the capture, which is like those letters are in image form. They're like small pictures, and they need some sighted person to interpret them in order to feed them into the account username and the password, so that you are able to enter into the system. So as I will again emphasize, we still rely a lot on trusted personal assistants in order to do digital banking. Yet it should be possible for somebody for a blind person to do their own banking. Like one time I was in the Netherlands, and I was using ABN AMRO. They have a particular section within their website where they if somebody configures it for you, you should be able to do all the transactions you want without the assistance of somebody sighted. For example, you can input the monies that you want to send, and when you are about to send, they will ask for the PIN code, and when you put it in your identifier, it will automatically be read by the computer, and you are able to send, and the transaction will be complete. Here, it is still an issue of working with assistants. And finally, there's also a problem of ignorance around the banking sector itself. When you go to the bank and you want to ask them to make the banking system accessible, many times they will be asking you many questions that you may answer, but not to their satisfaction. For example, when I talked about the ATM, I told them this is something that is very easy and very possible. You can make this accessible. Those were about 7 to 8 years ago, but no improvement has been made around that. So you find that we still have a lot of issues. Maybe when this law, the ICT policy for persons with disabilities, comes out anytime, maybe we shall have a stronger mandate to go and advocate for more accessibility in the banking sector. Thank you very much, Mohammed.
Abdul, thank you very much for this wonderful intervention and very precise to the point issues that you just highlighted. And thank you very much once again for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts despite all the hurdles that you had in your ways. I hope my speakers would not mind if I shuffle around the agenda a bit. And so since we have heard a lot about the countries which are developing or underdeveloped, or these countries, about Africa and Asia. Now let's go once again to Europe and see what Gerry Ellis. Gerry, by the way, works with a bank as well, and he has a lot of experience of working with accessibility and disability, particularly with digital accessibility. So, Gerry, my question to you is that what sort of issues are particularly, because Majid highlighted some wonderful facilities that people with vision impairment in our parts of the world wish to have. But what are the issues that you guys face with your banks? Gerry, floor is yours.
Thank you, Shabbir, and thank you to the Internet Society.
Gerry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So thank you, Shabbir, and thank you to the Internet Society. Pardon if I get interference from my screen reader. In Ireland, we're quite developed in banking, but we're not that developed in the area of accessibility. If you go into a branch, the branch is generally inaccessible, but they're very, very helpful. And there's no barriers to say, well, you must bring people with you or whatever. You can get Braille statements sent to you, fine. You can normally access the internet offerings fairly well, but the branches are not that accessible. But I didn't really want to talk about banking in Ireland as such. I wanted to talk more about banking in general. And I wanted to talk about what are some of the barriers and maybe some of the resolutions. So if you look at banking in general, there are a couple of stakeholders. There's the customers, there's the bankers themselves, but there are also the regulators. And we have to keep the regulators in mind. So if you look at bankers, if you break them down further, you have colleagues. In other words, you have staff members, you have customers, and you have communities. Banks are often at the center of communities. So it's good for the bank, it's good for the community. It's much wider than just a one-to-one relationship. It is a relationship with an entire community and in fact with an entire society. I've worked in technology for 40 years, so I want to talk a little bit about technology. Technology can be our greatest benefit or can be our greatest barrier. And we have to maybe help make sure that it is a benefit and not a barrier. So technology, one of the things it can do is it can promote, the banks can see cost savings by closing branches and pushing people towards using technology instead of traditional branches. We need to watch out for that, and we need to make sure the technology is accessible. Another thing that technology can do is it can allow organizations from outside of your country to provide technological solutions in your country. So it's not so easy for us to sort of lobby or to try and influence those if they're coming from outside the country. So artificial intelligence. I wanted to look at a particular area of technology, which is artificial intelligence. It's an area I'm particularly interested in, and I'm actually doing a course on it at the moment. So the influence of artificial intelligence is growing and growing in technology in general, but also in banking, to try and say, well, what customers have been good customers, who's good to lend to or whatever. Two of the key concepts in artificial intelligence is bias and fairness. And we have to ensure that our needs are included in those key concepts of fairness and bias. Minorities such as people with disabilities. So if we don't do that, it very quickly we will find that minorities, including people with disabilities, are ignored. Because this is only technology. It's not people that's looking at stuff. It's not people that are looking at how to make decisions. It's machines, and machines are based on prior learning. And if our needs are not in there, we will lose out. AI is also for recruitment and promotion of staff. The other area, of course, within banking is that we want to have people with disabilities on the staff. And increasingly, AI is being used to filter applications, to maybe help with who will be promoted, who won't be. And again, if our needs are not taken into account, we will lose out. So who do we need to lobby to make sure that this happens? Well, what we need to promote, of course, are internationally recognized standards like the WCAG and the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities, and particularly, I would say, universal design, which says that we should be consulted early in the design process and right the way through the development and testing processes. That's key. Who do we lobby? Lobby decision makers high in the organization. Lobby people who are high in the organizations that you're trying to promote accessibility. Those who have the financial might, those who are making the financial decisions, they need to be lobbied. But we also need to lobby those at the bottom of the organizations, those who are the actual technology people who are actually doing the designing, doing the developing, doing the testing. We need to lobby them to make sure that they know how to do it. Once the people have decided this is the way we want to do it, then we need to teach them how do you do it. But we also have to talk to government and to regulators. Remember, banking is very heavily regulated industry. We have to lobby banking representative organizations, but we also have to lobby the technology representative organizations, like in Ireland, that would be the Irish Computer Society. So we need to promote universal design and so on with those organizations. And of course, in third level institutions where technology is taught. So my final conclusion is promote accessibility, promote it at every level, recognize who are the stakeholders. And the last point I would say is this is not just an aspiration. Accenture about 18 months ago produced a report that demonstrated very clearly that accessibility and diversity is not just the right thing to do, but it is economically beneficial to those organizations. Keep it in mind, nothing about us without us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerry. I am already running a little bit behind time. So without any further ado, I now come to my own homeland and would request a good friend, Imran Shaikh, who is the Director Media and Communication of Pakistan Blind Cricket Council, to give his intervention and talk about, though I am quite familiar about these issues in Pakistan, but I know my participants would like to listen to you. Imran, the floor is yours. Imran, you are muted, I guess. Imran?
Yes, my audio is now unmuted. Hello, everybody.
Yes, it is. Yes. Loud and
Thank
clear,
you very
Imran.
much, Shabbir,
Go ahead.
for giving me the floor. I am very glad to listen the speakers around the globe in this brilliant webinar. And I am Director Information and Coordination in Pakistan Blind Cricket Council. I have done my master's in special education in 2005. I was partially sighted till 2016, as I am the RP patient. So I ultimately lost my eyesight in 2016 or 17 due to retinitis pigmentosa. I worked hard for the rights of visually impaired people in Pakistan, especially in banking sector. In 2014, the State Bank of Pakistan, which is the regulator of all banks in Pakistan, issued a policy for the rights of for the banking rights of the visually impaired persons in Pakistan. And after some time, the policy was not initiated by different banks. Before 2014, many of visually impaired people have their bank accounts just on behalf of their friendly relationship with the branch manager, because a few years back, we have a system that the branch manager was the authority to open a bank account of any person in Pakistan and to also issue them ATM card or credit cards. But later on, the policy got revised, and the regulator of State Bank of Pakistan decided to centralize the banking procedures. And then they also started to issue a policy regarding the rights of visually impaired persons. One thing I observed in this discussion, that there is a common problem around the globe, is unawareness of visually impaired persons. that what they can do or what they cannot. So until 2016 or 17, many of us tried to open their bank accounts and try to have ATM cards, but majority of them got failed. Then, fortunately, I started to coordinate with the banks and convince them, and I showed them that policy which was issued by the regulator, and I also try to advocate them that visually impaired persons can operate their bank accounts, and also they can deal with the ATM cards, and also they can use mobile banking applications if they were allowed. Then some banks started to open individual bank accounts and try to issue them ATM cards. In our country also, we don't have accessible ATM machines, but we have lots of banks, popular banks, who have developed their mobile applications. Those are extremely accessible with the voiceover and also with the talkback in Android. So we have two categories in that regulatory policy. As our constitution of our country says that there should not be any discrimination on the basis of disability, that a person cannot have the same right as he or she, her or his colleague have the same. So the bank started that literate visually impaired and illiterate visually impaired persons cannot be equate. In the banking sector, everybody knows the signatures are quite important, but due to our visual impairment, majority of visually impaired persons cannot sign. The banks asked us to get training and try to sign the checks. Then I again convince them that this is our natural issue, and now the world is going to the biometric system. So why should we try to be trained to sign the checks? And can a sighted person get training of Braille if he is not needed? Then they said, okay, give us the solution. How can we consider a person who is literate or illiterate? Then we gave them solution. A person who have any kind of degree, who he or she will be considered as literate. He is putting their thumb not because of his illiteracy, due to his visual impairment. Then the banks came to this point, and by the grace of God, in Pakistan, majority of banks are providing services to the visually impaired people without discrimination. They issue ATM cards, they issue debit cards, they are issuing the mobile bank, internet banking, and they are also opening individual accounts. But lastly, the problem is only that the lower staff of the branches is unaware how to deal with the visually impaired persons. And unfortunately, I have observed that majority of our visually impaired persons do not have a good behavior with the branch staff. That's why they suffer more than they could not. So these are the benefits and the problems we are facing in our country. Our government is so possessive with the rights of persons with disabilities, but there is a problem on implementation, the laws, the policies, just because of unawareness of general masses. So I think the DPOs of our country should establish a good relationship with the management of the organizations, different organizations, and the visually impaired community should also establish a friendly atmosphere with our masses. So by these two things, we can overcome the problems faced by the visually impaired persons, specifically in banking sectors. There are many banks who are convinced and they are providing banking services to the visually impaired persons. Thank you very much, the accessibility SIG, especially Shabbir, and I am also thankful to all of you from all over the world who have participated in this beautiful webinar. Actually, I worked hard for the rights of visually impaired persons in banking sectors. That's why I'm very glad that this issue is being taken on the priority and it is being discussed on the world level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Imran. I really am grateful that you joined us today and shared your thoughts with us. Ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the last but certainly not the least speaker of today, Anatoliy Popko from Moscow, Russia, a very good friend and a digital rights activist in Moscow and beyond. So Anatoliy, without any further ado, the floor is yours.
Here we are. I think you can hear me now. Thanks a lot, dear Shabbir. Thank you to all of the participants and especially to those of us who shared the situation with banking accessibility in your countries. And I want to share real quick what's happening in terms of banking accessibility in Russia. But first of all, I'll just point out that I'm totally blind myself. And I'm 38 years old. I represent Russian Federation in G3 ICT / Smart Cities for All initiative. That is a global initiative for inclusive ICTs. And I also run Dialogue in the Dark, Russia, living in Moscow. So that's about myself. I also run the program that is aimed at training blind and visually impaired people to use the computers and other technologies. So I sort of know the problems of Russian blind and visually impaired community. Now let's go to the financial system of Russian Federation. Of course, there is a central bank of Russia. And the entire movement towards greater financial accessibility started, say, 5, maybe 6 years ago, when the initiative actually was all the talk about financial accessibility was initiated by Russian singer and activist, a beautiful lady named Diana Grutskaya. So it's kind of like Stevie Wonder in the US. So we have a person, a spokesman of our own, Diana Grutskaya, and she's blind herself. And she raised the problem of financial accessibility. For instance, the idea that Russian banknotes are not accessible if you try to touch them. So there should supposedly are tactile marks, but well, and I haven't met a blind person who'd be able to distinguish one banknote from the other using those tactile dots and lines. So she brought up that question and discussed it with chair of Russian Central Bank. So Miss Elvira Nabiulina, and they sort of started that impressed our central bank, and they started to think, well, what can we do to kind of like to improve the situation. But basically the actual work began in both in Central Bank of Russia within that regulator and within the largest commercial bank of Russia, which is Sberbank. It's called Sberbank, and Sberbank also decided to treat clients with disabilities as a separate category of clients. So, and they organized a division called Special Bank within the bank structure. And so they also started to push for greater accessibility. Another force behind that accessibility movement is like the official figure. That's lady who is a counselor for Vladimir Putin, for the president of Russia, Alexandra Levitskaya. And she also just brought that financial accessibility problem in a couple of formal and informal speeches, and the ball, so to say, started rolling. So what is happening now? Within the Central Bank of Russia, there is a steering committee, which I'm a proud member of, and that committee, working group maybe, issued several official letters to all the financial institutions, strongly encouraging them to become aware of clients with disabilities and of special needs, and more of various accommodation methods that could be, that could be implemented. In terms of digital accessibility, that's the high priority, and in terms of just branches. So wrapping up the part that concerns Central Bank of Russia, I should point out that two Bank of Russia officials acted as co-authors of Russian National Standard on Digital Accessibility. I initiated this work, and we do have a national standard on digital accessibility, which mirrors WCAG 2.1. So basically, we do have this standard, although it's not obligatory. So no organization as of now is obliged to follow the guidelines that presented there. So, but the regulator has a very strong and clear position on financial accessibility. And second part, which I mentioned, Sberbank, that is the largest bank. It has over 100 million clients, and it serves traditionally the majority of clients with disabilities. So what they did, for the time being, they have special division called Special Bank. They have two totally blind testers, and they test all their products, digital products, for accessibility. So now I am, I use mobile banking a lot, and I also can afford myself to just use all of the features of mobile banking application. And I can transfer money. I can, see my bank account situation, and I really am as independent in terms of my personal finances as probably I can hope for. When I come to the branch of Sberbank, there is a floor administrator. If the branch has more than four windows or more, there is a specially dedicated person who helps visually impaired clients with the electronic ticketing system, who helps navigating to the proper window, who just helps with the ATM if it doesn't, if it's not accessible. Although there are over 20,000 accessible ATMs all over Russian Federation. So I think that's more or less it. I only wanted to also point out that Moscow region and Russia may differ. There is a regional difference, but in Moscow, me and my blind peers and the friends and colleagues, we welcome and heavily rely on wireless payment systems like, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay. So, and I can use those payment systems a lot. So, financial sphere as really has become more or less very accessible, but only if we are talking about the largest bank of Russia. There are still financial institutions that yes, they are hesitant to make their digital products accessible. They do not want to educate their staff, and we still have some kind of way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gerry, for this wonderful intervention. With this, our speakers part is over. And Judith, can I ask that I think there are only like 15-16 minutes left. So Captioner and Judith, can you allow us like 15-20-25 minutes more so that we can have some more participation if there are number of questions?
Sure, if we run over, but right now we have about 20 minutes left. And so I think that should be fine. We may run over about 5 or 10 minutes but at most, but I don't think we need much longer.
Okay, thank you. I have 2 points. So listening to these 7 wonderful interventions, there are 2 main trends that come more often than not, which are more common. One is the ignorance of the banking sector about the capabilities of the people with disabilities in general and people with blindness in particular, since our topic is about people with vision impairment. So the ignorance about the capabilities, that what they can do, and this drives the patronizing attitude, the attitude that drives that people with vision impairments are unable to do banking independently. Of course, there are many differences as well in the developed and developing countries, which anyone attending this webinar from the beginning would have been obvious for everyone. I will not become a barrier between the participants and my wonderful speakers anymore. So there are some questions in the chat, and also you can raise your hand, and Judith will call upon you. Judith, can you start calling upon people and reading out the question?
Yeah, it's Judith Hellerstein for the record. Mahmoud is first. So Mahmoud, go ahead, unmute yourself. Mahmoud, can you please unmute yourself so we can hear your question? Great.
If
thanks.
I can be heard.
Yes, that's great.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'd appreciate the Internet Society for creating such a beautiful webinar, and we all could listen from around the world. I just wanted to add one thing. Well, first of all, let me tell you that I'm from Pakistan. And after listening to Brother Imran Shaikh and listening to brothers from Bangladesh, from Russia, from Jordan, and from all other parts, from America as well. And we all could understand that the developed countries had a lot more accessibility than obviously the developing ones. My concern and my question from all these fellows was that we always complain that we're not given enough opportunities, and we are not given enough options to avail the accessibility standards, better accessibility standards, better accessible banking. Do we actually think, or do we actually work to create awareness within the blind and within the disabled community to be stronger enough and to learn better accessibility and then advocate for their rights? Or we just beat about the bushes? That's what I have seen in my life. well, I can ask for something, but I don't know what am I asking for. So don't we ourselves need a certain level of education and better accessibility understanding within our own community? That was my question, please.
Thank you so much. Do we have an answer there? Do you want to take another question? We have one more question.
So do we have any other hands up?
Yes, we do. We have Abed.
Abed, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Just two questions, I think, for the speakers. The first one, I hear a little about the bank staff training. This is number one. Can anybody tell us about this training, how it was, about what issues? Because I have a little bit concern about what kind of training do the staff concerning the ability of blind persons to do the banking transfer, for example, or communication. Number two, I have little heard about the policies. Is there any special policies in the participant countries? Who can tell me if there are special regulations or laws or something about the banking system that allowed people with disability to do whatever they want? Thank you.
Thanks so much for that.
So anyone from the speakers would anyone like to take charge of the question that Mahmoud Khalil asked?
Sure. And then Majid, you can also talk about in the US.
Okay.
Yeah, Majid will go first, talking about the US.
Yes, thank you. The first question which Mahmoud actually was asking, I think, brother, this is not a problem. I think our blind community, especially in these days, blind people are visually impaired. They are well educated and they know what they are asking. Actually, the problem is in the sighted community. They don't know and they cannot understand the blind person what they can do. I think now what we need to do. I have a suggestion, Shabbir and the rest of the other people. If you guys can, make a small group, and also that practice you can do like in Bangladesh and Jordan and Russia and the rest of the other, the developed countries as well. You can make a small group and they can go to the different banks and demonstrate them about devices which you have right now. Like, for instance, you have the cell phones and you have laptops and you created the softwares, and you can show them that these devices we have, and through these devices we can have access easily our apps, websites, and we can check our the accounts, and we can manage easily. And also you guys can invite them and visit schools, your organization, and invite them and to show them your abilities, so they can trust on you. Yes, they can do that. So the problem is
yes,
trust.
Majid, thank you.
Yeah.
The question from Abid, who would like to take that?
Yes, and what should be a 1 minute. Also, in Majid, what he was also one of the reasons why the US has at least at the ATMs and other areas is because banks are considered part. The Americans with Disability Act has made banks focus on accessibility issues, not necessarily online, but actually the ATMs and the other transaction. It's just like maybe the tellers are not aware, but that's why most of the ATMs have headphones and speakers and braille because of these laws. And so many of the advances that the US have are because of the Americans with Disability Act. Yes, Vashkar?
Okay, yeah. So I quickly would like to address this question. In our region, if I just consider my country, like only 4% people with visual disabilities are going into school when they are under poverty line. So of course they are not prepared to use the very sophisticated technology. So even though there is many DPOs are there, but unfortunately all the DPOs are governed and managed by the NGO. It look like a project of NGO. Unfortunately, the global movement has a very less impact in a country like Bangladesh. UN agencies are highly reluctant because they have many UN CRPD, UN Disability Inclusion Strategy, but they are not implementing anything. And also big donors such as Bill Gates Foundation, etc., are paying for digital inclusion projects. But unfortunately, they are not considering the accessibility. As banking service are not prepared for the persons with visual disability, even persons with visual disabilities are not confident to ask the service. They thought, okay, this is not for me. So this is really a very critical situations. We can blame us, but we don't have the ability to overcome this challenge without the help of a state, without the help of community and so-called disability related NGO, especially INGO, who are just kidding with us. They are never ever invite us to work with them, etc. Thank you.
Yes, Vashkar, thank you very much for that intervention. And in one sentence, the question that Abid asked, that are there any specific policies related to digital accessibility and banking sector? So yes, we heard different speakers saying that banking sectors as well as digital technology policies, they are there, they exist. Whether they are implemented and to what extent they are implemented is another story. And that's the story that we are discussing today, that policies do exist. From United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, high-level policies to the individual sector, banking sector and other sector-level policies. But when it comes to implementation, then we are faced with barriers, and we try to remove those barriers. As far as the question of educating ourselves of Mahmood Khalil is concerned, yes, you, Mahmood Saab, are very much right that we need to educate people with disabilities, people with blindness as well. But in my information, individuals would be educated when they need the information, but institutions, they have no excuse at all of remaining ignorant, because if individuals remain ignorant, they impact none. But if institutions and banks and the other governments and other sectors remain ignorant, they impact the societies. So in this way, I would say, yes, people with disabilities are needed to be educated, but more than that, institutions and the regulators, they need to be educated. Judith, do we have any questions from the chat?
Yes, we had one question earlier from the chat, and that was about the European laws. Are there different European laws that ensure accessibility of Braille for like Braille statements, Braille ATMs or speaking ATMs? Gerry, do you have any comment from Europe?
Hi, there is just recently passed in Europe, there is what's called the European Accessibility Act, and that will force over the next 3 or 4 years financial institutions to implement accessibility. For instance, one of the things that it doesn't say that every ATM in Europe must be accessible, but it does say that no producer of ATMs can produce an inaccessible ATM. So indirectly, it will make ATMs accessible. One that I would mention specifically from Europe, from the European Standards Organizations, is called EN 301549. That's a standard on making technology accessible. It has been adopted verbatim by Australia, and I understand that it is going to be implemented verbatim in Canada, and it is also being looked at by Mexico. So this is a very good standard for making technology accessible, and I spoke about that, the importance of technology going forward earlier on. And I would suggest that maybe we could lobby for that in other countries.
Thanks so much, Gerry. If you could put that in the chat, that would also be helpful. We have a question from Anatoliy, who is one of our
Anatoliy, do you have a
speakers.
comment? Yes.
But just a real quick one that yes, I second what you just said in terms of responsibility of government and financial institutions. And yes, there are some specific regulations that Central Bank of Russia issued, and those documents are directed to financial institutions in Russia. If there is a need for those, I can probably, send them, although the translation would be on your guys' part, if that's needed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anatoliy. I saw a hand raised and then lowered by Salman Siddiqui. Salman, do you have something to say? Or you still want to say something?
Right, but before Salman, we have Muzaffar Ali, who has been raising his hand.
Mustafa Ali. Okay, Mustafa Ali and then Salman.
Yes, Muzaffar. Thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, I would like to thank to the organizing this event, and this is wonderful actually. The first issue is that awareness, we have no awareness, especially within our community, that how banks are operate, especially for us. So we should have actually special need for awareness. This session is definitely a big role actually play for making awareness within our community. Yes, I wish that you should organize such kind of webinars in future as well. And if I am actually living in Pakistan and I talk about my experience, so I have actually opened my account. So I got definitely a good behavior with the bank staff, and they actually offered me the ATM debit facilities and internet banking, everything. But especially the thing is that our ATMs machines are not so accessible. So definitely they are working a lot to make accessible.
Yes, Mustafa, thank you. We hear you. Sorry to cut you short, but as you know, there is less time and more speakers to entertain. So thank you very much. We hear your suggestion as well. This webinar is neither first nor last. As the president of ISOC Accessibility SIG, I can say that we will try to organize such webinars, such events again. We are not stopping here. If you have any suggestions, do let us know about the topics. And if you want to organize a webinar or session on your own with the support of ISOC Accessibility SIG, of course, we are there to support you. Thank you once again for your intervention. Salman?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello guys, my name is Mohammed Salman Siddiqui, and I have a short question. I know that time is very short. So first of all, thank you, Shabbir, for organizing such a wonderful webinar. My question is, one of our fellows says that our blind people, those who goes to the branch to open their accounts, they also have not good behavior with the staff, banking staff. But my question is that if the staff is irritating, if they are not eager to listen us, I had very bitter experiences when I tried to open the account in some of the banks of my country. So what is the solution then? Should we come back without, fighting our case? Because if they are not listening by our polite behavior, because the fellow said that our behavior is not good with the staff. So what do you suggest? What should we do? Thank you.
I think, Imran, you raised this point, if I'm not wrong, that some of the blind people, when they go to banks, their behavior with the staff is not good. Was it you or was it someone else? Imran, are you there?
Imran, you're muted. Imran, if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I'll try to answer this question to Salman.
Yes, can you hear
Salman,
me? Can you hear
Yes.
me? This is Imran.
Yes, Imran.
Okay, yes, Salman. Yes, I raised this point. And you are saying that if a staff is not treating you well, you don't need to fight them and shout them as they are not treating you, but you have different forums. You have complaint forum to that bank, and you have also the State Bank of Pakistan as a forum. So you can approach them that so and so branch treated me badly, and as a policy, State Bank has issued these rules, and they are not abiding that rules. So you don't need to lose your temper. You should approach the appropriate forum, I think.
Thank you, Sheikh Saab. Judith, do we have any other hands raised?
No, we do not, but we did have a question in the chat. Some people wanted if Gerry could put the report that you talked about, I think it was from Accenture, one of the larger consulting firms, in the chat. And then we have a comment by Andy Heath, who said we are in a bubble, but we need to know what is known here to be disseminated everywhere. It's mostly an education issue and sometimes a political issue. But I find that true with the education. And Andy, do you want to express your opinion while you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I didn't mean it. I didn't say it's mostly an educational problem. I said it's both an educational and a political problem. And I've said some of this before on previous talks, and I'll say them again. I still think there's a missing layer. I think if you had a system where people wanted to do accessibility, where you've got the stuff at the top, the UNCRPD, and then you've got guidelines and standards coming down for that, which is around the detail, but you still have a situation, unless you have an ethos in countries, in diverse countries, that they want to do accessibility, then you still have the situation where it can be manipulated, it can be got around, somebody can try and they're trying to save money, do things cheaply. Oh, I don't want to do that, I don't know about that. It is manipulable. And I think there is a missing layer. And specifically, I think that missing layer is about user needs, and to a lesser extent, goals as well. Gerry Ellis knows what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, for example, some of the material that started in Guide 71, but has now been developed in other places as well. And I hope I can develop that as a theme with you on a future call, because I think unless you have all these pieces together, you're going to have the situation where things are exploited, where people are exploited, because standards don't fit into an overall framework. They're just little pieces of the problem.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and Andy, that is perfectly, even organizations who do have the care and they take care to make a website accessible, they don't realize that afterwards it becomes non-accessible as people upload documents that are not accessible. And, and there's a lack of awareness among people on how to do accessibility.
Absolutely, but there's just so many pieces of this that have got to fit together to make it all work.
Yeah, there are a lot of pieces, and even in the U.S., which is in many places above it because of the Americans with Disability Act, we have our online stuff is not as good because there is not the same level of enforcement and ability of that, because the ADA doesn't, although it extends to that, it's not explicit. And so there is not a push for that. And there's been a political push not to adopt certain new features and new guides, but hopefully that's going to be changing.
Well, I hope it is changing. I'd certainly put my own country within the countries that try and wriggle out of doing stuff, and and that responds to particular sets of lobbyists with lots of money, rather than people who are saying accessibility is important. Certainly, but that's a political issue. Sometimes one government will have a different view, and sometimes they won't.
Right. And
Yes,
then as of Nicholas's question in the chat, in Sweden, we have problems recruiting developers who know about accessibility. I don't think it's a problem recruiting. I think it's a problem of awareness of the web accessibility guidelines, whether it's the WCAG, the authoring guidelines. I think it's lack of awareness. Every developer can do that. They're just not aware, and they're not told this is a mandatory feature. That's an issue. And I know we're winding down. Any last questions before we wind down? It's been an excellent webinar here. We had about 45 people at one time. So we have a lot of good discussions here. But Shabbir, do you have any other final thoughts?
Yes, I just have to thank all the participants, the speakers, not the least. Thank you very much for saying yes to my call. And thank you very much to all the participants for joining us today and enlightening us with your thoughts and enriching the discussion. My also thanks to Internet Society for providing us this forum and the funding for organizing such kind of events and webinars. My thanks are also due to our wonderful captioners who remain in the background and made our webinar accessible. Thank you to you as well. Last but not the least, thank you to my team, Judith, Gerry, Judith, Greg, Jolly, and Ganella for supporting me in organization of all the events and this webinar as well. This was the 6th and the last webinar in the current series that we ran. But as I said in the beginning, we are not stopping there. There is another proposal that we are putting up, and soon you will be hearing from us that we are organizing a new series of webinars. And if you have any ideas in this regard, that on what subject we should organize a webinar on, and also any other suggestions, do share that with us, info@accessibilitysig.org. Thank you very much once again for everyone for joining us today. I'd lastly say that keep the discussion on. It is the way of discussion that we keep on finding the solutions. So keep the discussions on, and someday, somewhere around the time, we'll find the solutions. Thank you very much once again.
Yes, thanks again. And if you have sessions, to host these sessions, we applied for a grant so that we could pay for the captioning and sign language if it's needed. We always ask if people want sign language. This time people did not send in any requests, but we want to make sure we have money. And then also in the future, we want to make sure that we also do this in different languages, because I know there's been requests for other languages, but we didn't have the money is set aside in this budget. But so send any request in. And also, here's my plug. If you are interested in promoting accessibility, and you are a member of an ISOC chapter, not a SIG like ours, Mohammed Shabbir, our president, is running in the chapter elections. So if you're a member of a chapter, please encourage your voting representative to promote accessibility issues. And I know Shabbir will be a great power of this, but that's my last plug. And thanks again for coming.
Thanks, Judith, for that.
Yes, and Jolly will send out the information on how you can watch this again. It's right now always on the live stream, but it will be archived on internet.org, archive.org. Internet Archive, the Wayback Machine, and it'll be there for anyone who wants it. So thanks again for coming to this great webinar, and have a great rest of your day. And thanks to the captioners for staying the extra 10 minutes.
Thanks, everyone.